up, guys? This is Jayme Bedingfield. You are listening to Too Many Words, my podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I said it last week and I like it, but this is the podcast for the creative and the more than slightly odd. I do a lot of self-talk for a while. I give updates about what I'm working on, and then I bring on an awesome guest. And I gotta say, I have an awesome show for you guys today. I'm really excited. I have Maxximillian Dafoe on the show, and she is an incredible woman and a very talented writer, a creative mind. And I just had a blast talking to her, and I say in full confidence that I will be having her on again, and I will also be going on her podcast. And I'm super excited about that, and I'm super excited to share it. We get into some pretty cool stuff. Natural conversation at its best. Aquariuses chatting it out. It's good stuff. So stay tuned for that. And before I get too into what's new and what's on my mind and the state I'm in at this late hour that I'm recording it, procrastination, folks. We all do it. I seem to make an art out of it. And this week has just been super crazy. I started my Monday morning like, shit, I am not ready for today. And since then, I've been running about 30 minutes behind. And yep, that is the situation. But so I'm going to start it with my self-plug, my self-promotion. Self-promotion makes me feel dirty and uncomfortable, and I feel unnatural telling you guys to pay attention to certain things, but it's part of the business. So, self-promotion time. I am really excited to announce that Rebecca Clark and I have officially entered a fantasy novel that we have been co-writing into a competition, Geek and Sundry contest through Inkshares. The project is called The Shadow Bearers, and it follows two characters, Tag and Athea, from different clans, and we're going to find out how they can stop the darkness from destroying their land. This started out as a short story in the spring and turned into something so much more, and part of that is just how good Rebecca and I work together. It's amazing. It's like spaghetti and meatballs. It really is. We've just had so much fun playing off of each other and bouncing ideas back and forth. And we both brought these certain ideas to the table, and it's turned into something so exciting. So please, your support here is big. We need 750 pre-orders in order to win. And the first 3 leaders, they make out with some good stuff. And this is a big step as far as Rebecca and our journey to following our dreams, pursuing our writing. This is a big part of it. And the opportunities for the winners are pretty great. So if you could go to inkshares.com, look up the Shadow Bearers, and support us, that would just be so awesome. And as we continue further into the contest, we will be adding more of the story on there. But right now, if you go to inkshares.com and look up the Shadow Bearers, you can read the prologue and the first chapter, read the blurb, and see the fantastic cover. I'm super thrilled about all of it. I'm really excited. So, yes. Help! No, but yes, any support or shares and all that, super appreciated, guys. And that is all the self-promotion I am going to do, other than, where to find me at the end of the show, and when I answer the questions that I've been doing every week, of course. So, before I get to the how are you, how are me, how am I, and yes, I'm recording this late at night. I have had more than 2 beers, let's just say that, and I'm tired, and I've been pushing it really hard, And please know that I'm not complaining when I say that, because I've been pursuing just this writing thing for so long, and I'm starting to get so busy with different projects and different deadlines. I'm not complaining, but wow, guys, I am busy and I'm tired, and it's summer, and I'm running around with the kids, and then I'm starting work, and plus I'm watching Game of Thrones, so there is not a lot of time for sleep. No rest for the wicked. That is a plug for Dane Cobain's book, No Rest for the Wicked, and the plug for the song. So, double plug. Anyway, questions. So, before I get into the questions, I want to do a special shout out to Chet. Chet, if you are listening, I really appreciate your support and your feedback, and you rock. And I say this, keep writing, keep doing what you're doing, and thanks again. For reals. And questions. All right, we will do this. A short and sweet one. Jayme, do you ever question your ability to write? It seems like that's all I do. Craig, yes. I question my ability constantly. And I tell myself this, and perhaps others disagree, but I tell myself that is part of the process. And the trick is not to not doubt yourself, but on how to use it. So when you question your ability to write, when your inner critic comes up, that is an opportunity for you to basically do a mini trial of what it's like selling your book, pitching your book, all of that. And yes, convince yourself and convince the world. That's what I say. And yes, use the inner critic as a tool, something to help guide you, something to help motivate you, not something to necessarily mute, and definitely not something to keep you from creating. The inner critic gets to me, my voice, my doubt. It's something that I constantly have to manage. But that being said, if I don't let it overcome me, and I've gotten a lot better at that than I was, let's say, 4 to 6 years ago, I have been not letting it slow me down, but helping it guide me. So that is what I say, Craig. Don't let it stop you. We all doubt ourselves. We're human. I think that's part of humanity. But just keep writing. Keep it up. And my next question is not as positive, but we are all human after all. Jayme, I read your recent piece on Feminine Collective, Not Enough. Your part about how men don't receive judgment the same as women for choosing work over school engagements really bugged me. I always put family first. Anton. First off, I want to say, Anton, I'm sorry. Of course, I did not mean to offend you there. My husband personally, he makes work sacrifices all the time. He's very involved in our kids' life, and I meant no offense in that regard. What I said also didn't say that I thought it was right. I mean, really, the whole form of the article, the whole theme there was that it wasn't. Modern day society has many faults. And one of those faults is that it is looked at differently when men have work obligations that interfere with family time, with the home life, than women. And it's the truth. I've seen it firsthand. I'm experiencing it currently. It is, no one questions a father's ability to father when they are unable to make a school function because of a meeting. Whereas with mothers, it's completely different. And I'm not saying that that's right. I'm saying quite the opposite. So I definitely didn't mean any offense there. I don't agree with it personally. It's just something that I've noticed. So there we have it. So how's it going? That was quite a ramble before I got to the How's everybody doing? Summer is winding down, which I just can't believe, and I haven't wrapped my head around that the fall is coming. And the beginning of the school year is so crazy. School starts in the same week that's my son's birthday, and work-wise, things are really ramping up at that time too. So I'm terrified. But so what's going on? What are you guys up to? Are you on vacation? Are you in your car? Are you working? Are you happy? Are you following your dreams? Are you frustrated? Is the person behind you following you too closely? That makes me crazy. When I look back, I'm like, why is that person so close? I actually, like, more times than not, and I'll admit it, and I'm not proud of it, but when I'm driving in the car, I'm like totally ready for a fight. And mostly because I think everybody is. And like, it doesn't take much for me to get pissed off while I'm driving. Especially this time of year in Seattle. It's like so busy everywhere, and all the roads are being worked on, and tourists are just everywhere. They're everywhere, and I'm not complaining. This is a great city. Come here. It's wonderful. It's a happy place. But oh my gosh, it's crazy out there. Crazy out there. And it's been an intense week for me. I'm tired. I'm not sleeping well. I'm not sleeping well when I'm sleeping, but I'm also not even able to go to sleep until late. Part of that is working. Part of that is my mind spinning and planning. And part of that is the fact that I can't stop watching Game of Thrones because it's so good. We're on the 6th season now, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to keep watching, but at the same time, I don't want to run out. But it's going to happen. But that's also good because then once we're done with that, I can really make my husband watch Strange Things, which he hasn't yet. I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to love it. He is. And I'm going to get there. I'm working on it. TV. Craziness. All right. Well, I'm just going on and on here, and I'm tired. And I have a really awesome talk for you, so I'm going to get to that. Here is Maxximillian Dafoe, and this just charming conversation about fun things, wondrous things, and creative things. A little bit of song, like usual. You know the deal if you've been here before. If you haven't, thank you for tuning in. And here is a little bit of a song before getting to my awesome talk. Here we go. Hey, Maxximillian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jayme.
I've been looking forward to chatting with you. It's funny when you listen to, because I've been listening to your podcast and also reading your book Mollyville, and when you pay attention to what somebody creates, you start to get a sense of feel like you get a sense of them. So I've been excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm excited to be on because I've been listening to all of your episodes.
Thank you.
So I'm like, and I've been reading your blog too.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
The first time I came across you was actually your video about kindness on Soul Pancake.
Oh, that's so cool. That makes me that was really a special day for me. I was at YouTube Space LA, and I spent a lot of time there. I don't have the time these days, but I was there while Soul Pancake was they were filming something there at YouTube. I know some people don't know this, so I better explain. YouTube Space LA is actually a place, not just online, but it's a real, like a little movie studio. And they have all the top of the line cameras. They've got sound stages. I mean, it's the whole nine, and it's really fascinating and fantastic. And they have workshops there. And
that's awesome.
If you're a serious YouTuber or you want to you want to really make a go of it, if you go to YouTube Space LA, and I know that there's one in London. I think there's one in Asia, maybe. I know there's one in New York, but the one in LA is like the best. So I just had discovered Soul Pancake, and I was at YouTube Space going for a workshop or something, and there were all these little notes on clothing lines, and I was like, what is this? And they were like little notes that you were supposed to write from yourself, like to yourself, something like that. And I was like, what is this? And this woman explained to me, oh, this is Soul Pancake. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, as in kid president soul pancake? And she was like, yeah. And my enthusiasm was so great that they ran to get the producer, and they like put me through the it kind of looked like an obstacle course that they had going on with like a slide and all this stuff. So I felt so excited that that they chose me to do that, and that my part made it onto the show. I was so thrilled and elated.
That's awesome. Wow, so you weren't even expecting it then when you went there. It just kind of happened?
Yeah, I was going there for something totally different. Oh, you know what I think it was? I know what it was for. It was for YouTube's happy hour. It's like the happiest hour on the planet.
It sounds like pretty fantastic.
It was fantastic. So yeah, I wasn't expecting that. That was like a dream come true, literally.
Wow, that's awesome. No, well, and it's a great video. I mean, I that's like, yeah, I watched that, and then you looked you up and found other stuff because, kindness is always something that's on my mind. So, the way you talked about it, and that was just awesome.
Thank you. Why is kindness always on your mind? I'm curious. I know you're the host here, but
oh no, you you totally ask me questions. Well, I think it constantly surprises me how often it's not considered, I guess. And as I have 2 kids, and I'm constantly trying to get in their heads, every decision you make, it does have consequences, whether they're good, big, small, large, that depends. But the way you treat people is one of the most important things that you can focus on. And, so I guess if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I totally get it. It's on your mind all the time because you're all the time wanting to instill the important lessons that you've learned in your are they both boys, right?
Oh no, I have my oldest is a daughter, and then I have a son.
Oh, okay. I saw a picture of you with 2 young men, so I was like, who are these guys? So
the older one was my nephew.
Oh, that's right. How was your vacation? Sorry to be jumping all over the place.
No,
I was
it's
so
great.
excited.
So am I. No, my vacation was great. I had no idea how badly I needed the time off until I took it. Even the first day, I was like messaging somebody that I'm co-writing something with. I'm like, this doesn't count as work, but what do you think of this? But once I got into it, I was just like, oh, hello, Jayme. It's nice to meet you again.
Yes. Well, you did answer the question though. I understand why kindness is on your mind all the time because you want to give this wisdom, you want to make it in their mind so that they're not having to later on be like, oh, I wish I understood way back then how important it was to treat people with kindness and courtesy.
Definitely.
You want to save them the missteps.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. Yeah, you nailed it on the head there. Well, and I think, especially like when I was younger and growing up, I was just so angry all the time. So like being kind to others and not lashing out, that was just not something that I cared to work on because I was just angry. So that was my place. And then, as I worked through stuff and got to a healthier place in my life, that naturally changed my mood. But as far as how I interacted with people, it was a subtle change at first, but, it was, it's really what you put out there, you get back. So.
Well, sometimes
it's true.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's not a general blanket statement, but it helps.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. How it helps me the most is I know that whatever happens, it's not a result of something awful that I did to someone.
Yes.
And that means a lot because a lot of times, I guess I'm probably not a person that believes that you get what you get put out or whatever, because I've put out a lot of times really, good, warm love, help, assistance, graciousness, and what I get back is like a dog turd.
Yeah, no, there is definitely that.
Yeah. Trip.
Yeah. Well, no, it's, to even take it to like a smaller note. I mean, my sister-in-law, we had, family in town, and she's a just super outgoing, friendly person. And she says hi to everybody.
And it's funny because, occasionally instead of getting a hi back, she'll get like a nasty look or, a no response. And it's just like, and then she immediately is, she's like, I was just being friendly. You can't say hi.
Now, is she from South Jersey too, like your husband, or?
Yep. Yes.
And she says hi to people?
Yeah, no, she is super friendly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I was like, because that's something when people come to LA from other places, a lot of people comment on people not always returning the hello. Although I feel like that's changing, at least in my city. But yeah, that's something that I noticed. Like people get really, I don't know exactly what it is. Sometimes I experience that too, where I give like a hello, an eye look, a friendly, like a smile, and I'm just flowing so much love because I'm feeling good. And I don't usually get dirty looks, but sometimes I get that look like you can almost hear the person go, okay.
Yeah.
And it makes it used to make me feel take me down a couple notches, and now I remind myself when that happens, it still happens. I remind myself that person doesn't owe me anything.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And some people they just don't want to. And sometimes I've been that person too. I try to remind myself like, that they don't owe me anything, and I don't know what their moment before was. That day maybe they just came from a colonoscopy and it didn't go well. I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, that's so true. It's just like, and it's so, and I'm guilty of forgetting it too, but like everybody has their own stuff going on, and every day is, a day that's filled with, surprises and disappointments and all kinds of stuff. And, in certain public, when you're talking about, a public situation, you've got a whole hodgepodge of people, all different backgrounds, all different mindsets. And it's like, you don't know what you're dealing with, like the other day I was standing in an empty parking space, putting stuff in the side of my car, like groceries. And this car went and just kind of started to speed into the spot I was standing in and then honked at me. And, and I do, my reaction to that kind of stuff isn't always the greatest. So I got all like,
What was your reaction?
I think I threw my hands up in the air, and then like I moved the cart. So it was like, I am now taking up the whole spot and I have no intention on moving. And then they, and then they backed up, and it was, whatever. But it was like, it's really easy to just think that person is a total asshole. And then, I don't know. I have no idea what their story is or what they're dealing with. And,
Well, I'd like to go on the record as saying I think that person was a total asshole.
I happen to think so too. But it is. No, it's interesting to think about that. Like what brings people to do certain things or act certain ways. And yesterday I woke up and I was like, I'm not ready for today. And that was just kind of the theme of yesterday, where it was just like, it wasn't a bad day, but it was just a frustrating long day. And I was definitely not the friendliest person at the grocery store.
Oh, well, you didn't like cut in the line, did you?
No, I was just grumpy. I was a grumpy shopper.
An old lady did that to me one time. I remember when I moved I've lived all over LA, but for a little while I lived on this little street just near Robertson and Pico. And there was like this little neighborhood grocery store, like they have like a kosher deli and stuff like that. So there are a lot of like elderly people that shop there. They've been going there for longer than I've been alive, and they own the joint. I was new in the neighborhood, admittedly, and if you looked around, like everyone was older than me by a mean of about 40 or 50 years. But I got my little purchase, and I was in the line, and I was next, and this old lady, you're not going to believe this, but I swear I'm not even embellishing this. This old elderly, okay, she was elderly. She physically jostled me out of the way and cut in front of me and put her stuff on the thing, like on the beep, beep, that thing. And my eyebrows lifted into my hairline. I just couldn't believe the gall. She actually like shouldered me. And I walked out of the store like in a daze. I'm not too cool to admit this. I cried. I cried walking to my car because I felt so hurt. And the cashier lady, she didn't even step up and say, "Oh, I believe she was next, miss." No, she just rang up the lady. And even after the lady was gone, the woman didn't say sorry about that, or, "Oh, that's old Mrs. So-and-so. She's not so bad." No, just like it was no big deal. And I just felt so hurt.
Yeah. Wow.
It was, yeah. And I don't know what that lady's issue was, but it was just really, maybe she's like in the "I'm old and fuck you," I don't know what it was, but like that was like a really hurtful. It was really hurtful. I guess just like, I don't know, maybe because I was new in a new neighborhood and I was like, is this what it's gonna be like? Oh, this is not gonna for sure be my grocery store now. I see how it is.
And yesterday actually, I took my kids to their taekwondo lesson. And I don't typically go. My husband usually takes them, but he had a work thing popped up, so I took them. And they were doing a tape testing. They have to get 2 different color tapes in order to qualify for their belt testing. And my son was just having a hard time, and he was just not feeling good about what he was doing. He was starting to tear up. And there was this woman there, like sitting very close to where the kids were practicing, laughing at him. And it wasn't like "Oh, isn't he adorable?" It was like, "Oh, he's messing up."
Really?
Yes. And I gave myself an initial moment because like my daughter was already done. So she was like, my daughter was getting all mad. She was going to say something. And I positioned myself to just be able to just give her a glare, like, stop it. Because it's a small place and like losing, my temper in the middle of the dojang's probably not the best practice. But she continued, and then I kind of stood up and I didn't yell and I didn't curse, which I was proud. But I was just like, how about you not do that? But it was, yeah.
So wait, what happened?
But she was just like, it was like a heckling laughter, basically.
And she was definitely directing it at your son?
Yeah, no, it was definite.
Did she have a kid that was competing?
She was a grandparent of another kid who was waiting for their turn because they do it by belts.
Oh, she sounds like that's what I call ripe for killing.
Yeah.
So you told her, please don't do that. Did she respond to you, or just curious?
No, yeah, she stopped. And I mean, at that point he was kind of finishing up and, but she stopped. She didn't apologize or really say anything at all, but she stopped. And it was funny, the master that was teaching that teaches my kids says to me, "I have adult classes in the morning."
Just in case you'd like to bring that whoop ass I saw in your eyes, you'd like to bring it to the surface. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
And that stuff, and that's why, to bring it back to why kindness is on my mind, that kind of stuff it always makes me think, because it's like, and I mean, I won't say that I'm completely, in the clear with that. I'm not always, the best, in situations, and I yell at people on the street when they drive too fast, and I don't need to do that. But, yeah, no, I pretty much like every day last fall, I was walking my dog and I would just be yelling at cars, like, "Slow down!"
Because they're zooming past you as you're walking?
Yeah.
That's, well,
my neighborhood's under a weird transition because it's turning into, basically the city is swallowing it, and it's getting more populated. There's more houses, and like this road that I live off of, it's a major throughway now. But the way it's set up, it's like an old country road as far as it doesn't have sidewalks and it's narrow. And it was definitely, when it was first, being used or whatever, it was not a throughway. But now it's like a direct line that all these cars come off the freeway and kind of shoot deeper into the neighborhood. So it's like, people use that road for their commutes and stuff.
Have there been many accidents on that little stretch right there? Just curious.
No, actually, there hasn't. And it's just, it's just a speed zone.
Sounds like maybe this is, I say there's a time and a place for everything. Even the things that we think are undesirable, there's always the perfect time and place. That sounds like the perfect time and place for one of those motorcycle cops that hides behind the sign.
Yes. Well, I was actually calling the police department a lot. And I was just like, you guys would make out so well. You would get, because there's all these side streets off of it. So there's like, plenty of spots. And like I said, it's in the process of being consumed, by the city, but it still has like a lot of its trees and stuff, which, a lot of the Seattle neighborhoods, their trees are, juvenile, and we have like these big evergreens. So there is plenty of cover, and I haven't, there is no speed control on that road, but
not yet.
Not yet. Perhaps if I talk about it enough on my show.
Yeah, but maybe like you could put like a sign up, or get a group together to put up a sign that's, not necessarily like a city official sign, but like some type of sign urging people to drive with care.
Yeah.
Maybe something to like tug on people's heartstrings, like the stick figure of the person walking the dog or something like that. Throw a little kid on there too,
Totally. Well, I saw this one neighborhood had signs that I liked, and it said, drive like your children live here.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite sign that I saw, that's the nicest one. That's better than the one I saw was very, it elicited guilt, but it was also really smart. And it said, slow down, your family is waiting for you.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit dark.
Well, I think that's why I like it.
Yeah. I liked it too.
Yeah, it's like slow down and seriously evaluate what you're doing, because, I like that.
Yeah. That's good. Kindness is really important, and kindness there's so many different ways to display it, and driving, not blazing by someone who's walking their dog, is just one display. But, kindness, I don't know. I feel like it can definitely be learned, but I feel like it's kind of how well you love and like yourself is how much easier it will be for you to just, without trying, to be kind to other people.
Definitely. No, self-awareness I believe, is part of kindness.
Yeah.
That could possibly be a saying on a t-shirt. another sign.
Maybe it should. Maybe that, and then on the other side of the shirt, it can say, too many words. Jayme Bedingfield. Yeah, that is a good t-shirt though.
That is. And I like the merch tie-in.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all about those dollars. Broke girls don't have many friends.
Oh, I saw on your site that I'm also Aquarius.
You are my Aquarius sister. When's your birthday?
February 5th.
Oh my gosh, I'm February 7th.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I knew. I was like, I loved you. I saw your face and I was like, I love her face. Aquarians are amazing. I've never met an Aquarian that I didn't like, except for once. And it took me years to figure out that I didn't like him. Aquarian men are a little bit different. And I'm not one of those people that knows all about astrology, but I pay attention to what signs people are.
Same here. But yeah, I know that there's a lot to get into, and I only know the surface of it, but
yeah, and it's like, I'm sure it's all as accurate as the person is who's intuitive, who's interpreting it, like dreams,
Yes. I used to keep a dream journal when I was a teenager, and I had all these dream dictionaries. Yeah, because I've always had crazy dreams, and I still have them. But like there was I was 17 and like extra angsty, and I was like really just like trying to dissect them. And it's funny because like if there were, I don't know if you've ever read any dream dictionaries.
Have I? I own some.
Oh.
Tell me, yeah.
Well, and you know how depending on what you look up, there's multiple ways to interpret it. Like, So I always would, bend it in my favor. It's like, oh.
Well, yeah.
Because that's what dreams are for.
Did you ever have any that you remember? Did you ever have, or do you still have recurring dreams?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Yes.
Do you have any still from that you've had since back in the day when you were keeping that dream dictionary?
No, it's very, my recurring dreams are like phases, and they're very different. Like when I was pregnant with my son, I kept having a recurring dream that I was leaving my daughter in a car seat all over the city.
And then were you like not able to find the car, or was it just the part where you leave her?
It was just like I would misplace her basically, and then I couldn't find her and I was looking for her.
Ah, the looking for something in a dream thematic.
Yep.
Do you remember any other recurring themes in your dreams?
So I don't actually. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on a stretch where there were snakes in every dream.
What were they doing?
They were just there. They weren't dangerous, or at least they weren't. I mean, I think, I don't know if I could really pick out species, but they weren't, harmful to me. They were just more in this setting.
Yeah, you make me wish I had my dream dictionary sitting right here. It's in the other room. I wish I could use my wizard powers. I'm still working on this, being able to use my fingers to make things come to me from around corners and stuff.
You and me both. That would be awesome.
Well, that's interesting. I remember I had a dream about snakes. You know what? At some point today, I'm going to look that up and see what that means, just because it's interesting. When I was little, I used to have a recurring dream, and I had this recurring dream until I was about, I used to have it every time I would go to sleep until I was probably 20. And it was the way that all of my dreams began. It was almost like, when you watch a television show, how there's the intro song and the credits and stuff. It was like that.
Oh, wow.
And it was always the same. And it's very strange because, I'm not don't want to break any hearts here. I'm not really a sports fan unless I'm playing. I love to play sports. I love to play tennis. I'll watch tennis on television, but I don't watch it often. I like to be hands-on. So I say that to preface. This dream always began with a baseball game.
Really?
Yes, it was always exactly the same, shot by shot, all the time. And it was the umpire. Oops. The umpire would always say whatever the umpires say before the game. I don't really know what it is, but in my mind, it's always rah, rah, and rah, and then it's about to start, and then the pitcher would rear back with his leg up, and he would release the ball, and this is where it would get weird. I was the ball.
Really?
So every dream would start off, and I'm actually I'm actually the tennis ball. So my vision was the view of the tennis ball with going toward the guy with the bat. And so I would start off every dream going, "Oh God, it's gonna hurt! It's gonna hurt!"
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then when the bat would connect, I would hear the crack of the bat, and then suddenly I'd be in the dreamscape somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, and I tried to look that up in all the different dream journals. I could never come up with anything what that meant. I don't have any ties to baseball, at least not that I can remember. But I'm always interested to hear about recurring themes in dreams. Here's one that happens always still today. And then I recently heard something very interesting about this, listening to another podcast. Do you ever dream that you are in a building or an apartment and you're exploring an unfamiliar building or house or something?
Oh, yeah, very often.
Yeah, well, that's another recurring theme for me, being in a huge building, something really, really big, and exploring, usually going through the back ways or the tunnels of the basement or something like that. And I was listening to some old existential material, and that's what I do. If I have to do something boring like dishes or something, best believe I'm on YouTube looking for something in black and white, to listen to. And I think it was, I'm pretty sure that I was listening to someone talk about. Okay. Do you know who Jane Roberts is?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then about Seth as well, yeah?
Yeah.
So I was listening to something about Jane Roberts' dreams, about how there was a phase in her dream where she would go through that same exploratory thing that we were just talking about. And when she got to that point in her dream, that's how she knew that that was her cue that she was, oh, I'm in a dream. And then she would take control from that point and do what people do when they know they're dreaming, fly, all that kind of stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that transition was the signal for her. And interesting stuff.
Well, and I know some people and Stephen King is the most famous name I could pull, who I know has talked about doing this, but lucid dreaming has always fascinated me. And I've never really been, and I haven't really, practiced it, but that's, being able to kind of try and manipulate and control what you're going to dream. I think that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Also seems
I
dangerous.
does it? Why? Why does it?
No.
Wait, what do you got going on over there?
No, but I mean, like, under the, idea that it's your subconscious at work, perhaps you should just let your subconscious do what it's going to do, and controlling your subconscious,
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Tell me how you think it's dangerous. I really do. I'm very interested. I've never heard anyone express that before.
Well, I guess, like, the subconscious, and the human mind, there's so much that I feel like is not understood. And at least, especially, like, I can say there's a lot that I don't know about it. So attempting to control your subconscious, I wonder what, like, the side effects of that would be.
Well, I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it more like, well, if I were going to practice lucid dreaming, and I have some books on it too, it's like I have all these things that I want to master,
Yes.
like, duplicating myself, I know there's a fancy word for being in more than one place at a time, but it escapes me at the moment. But it's one of the things that I've looked into some, and I think of it as, instead of trying to control the subconscious, I think of it as segment intending.
Oh.
People that listen to Abraham Hicks or like know about law of attraction, have read their writings, they talk about something called segment intending. And people do this all the time, whether or not they listen to Abraham Hicks or not. Segment intending. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar. I'm very curious, though.
Okay. Segment intending, I'll give you an example of what it would look like. Okay. So I'm on my way to meet up with friends I haven't seen in 20 years, right? This is just, I'm making this up to give you an example.
Okay.
And I'm driving on my way there. Instead of listening to the radio or talking on the phone or whatever, I'm going to quiet the car, and I'm going to manufacture the feelings and the way that I would like for the next segment of my life that I'm about to experience. I'm going to manufacture the way I'd like for it to be, so that I can, within myself, set like a expectation, a positive expectation, not like it's got to go like this and like this, not like that, but just like I want to have the best time. I want to feel that connection. I hope, it's not so much like I hope or I want or it needs to be like this, but more like generating the feelings of excitement, the feelings of comfort, the feelings of acceptance, the feelings of happiness, because you want to feel happy, or I want to feel happy visiting those friends, and I want them to feel happy to see me too. So segment intending is that conscious, on purpose, thinking about something that you're about to do and putting forth a very positive expectation, not so much about what's going to happen, but how you'd like for the experience to feel. And sometimes you can promote how you want things to feel by coming up with like generalizations of certain key points. So as far as the lucid dreaming, I think about it like, instead of trying to control, I think of it as setting the tone for what I'd like. So if I want to feel in my dream, I want to feel free, I want to feel excitement. Maybe in my real life, I'm having some anxiety and I'm feeling uncertain about a lot of things. So if I want to go to sleep and I want to have a dream that's like so awesome that I just wake up in a good mood feeling amazing. Let's say in my dreams, like I want castles, I want dragons, I want to be able to fly. So I would take that time before I get ready to lay myself down and try my lucid dream session. I would try to manufacture the feelings that I would feel flying in the dream. How would it feel to fly, and what do I want to see, and the exquisiteness of the castle and the long halls I expect to see and the tapestries. And that's how I kind of imagine, by thinking about those things before I lay down to try to experience the lucid dream, of course, I have a much better chance of experiencing whatever it is I was thinking about before I laid down.
I like that.
Cool.
I like that a lot. Thinking of it that way, it's no different than writing down goals. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to control stuff is a loser's game.
Yeah, I know. Well, I have a natural, I I have some control issues that I'm working on. So that's probably why I took it there, like controlling my subconscious.
Well, subconscious. Well, I feel like if it's anything that we can be aware of, it's not the subconscious, because subconscious is like below consciousness. So like
Yeah.
even if we wanted to, we really couldn't. But so control. I had a very interesting conversation about control recently. And it was like, why do we try to control stuff? Like, is that when you say you have like issues with control, is that what you mean? Like you feel like you are not comfortable unless you're in control? What do you mean
Yeah,
exactly?
definitely
Oh,
that.
that. So it's a new theory, but tell me what you think about this. So like when you want to control stuff, is it coming from your desire for things to all work out well, or what is it coming from?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I
Because
mean, that's probably part of it. Um,
be-
yeah. Now I'm doing some soul searching.
oh, well, I ask because so like there's this idea, someone was talking about control, and they were like, people try to control stuff because for different reasons. Some people try to control things because they feel like if it goes some way not the way they say, it's not going to be good. Sometimes is the reason. Sometimes it's because people are afraid of the unknown.
Yeah,
And
that I
I
would fall in that category, I think. 'Cause I
oh
not all the time, but in the fear of the unknown certainly gets to me from time to time. I think especially when I'm, as far as like work, or if there's something that I'm concerned with, like how it's going to turn out, how it will be received, then I get all, bunched up.
I love that term, bunched up. It's like the best term ever. Well, I bet some segment intending will alleviate some of that feeling, for you. I find it
Definitely.
really helpful. The segment intending is like so helpful. And sometimes I go through periods where I completely forget about that exercise completely. But whenever I remember, it helps me so much, to take sometimes you don't have to do it for a long time, even literally even 30 seconds. Half of that you can, set an intention, and it just helps me feel better. I've given up a lot of wanting or needing things to be a certain way, and I just go all about how I want it to feel. Because if you focus on like, well, this is my favorite word, satisfaction. If I can feel satisfied, then I just kind of leave the dash alone, the middle part.
I like that. No, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
how you feel about something. I mean, perspective. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's all about perspective. There's a perspective that there's always going to be a perspective that is more beneficial than others. And especially when I am presented with the opportunity to do something that doesn't appeal to me, I see if I can find a perspective that is genuinely appealing. And if I can't, then I, of course, don't do the thing, whatever it is. But yeah, perspective is so important.
It
It's
is.
helped me a lot because most of the challenges are ones that, well, most of the challenges I believe that all of us have are challenges that we create for ourselves actively in every moment.
Wow. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, me too. I find it helpful to remember that. Like, oh yeah, this is this is just my mind telling me that this is not good. Well, why is it not good? Or, this is, I often several times in a day, sometimes 100 times in a day, depending on who's around, I have to do a reality check and say, okay, well, this is really pissing me off, or this is such an outrage. Why? Why is this an outrage? Oh, well, and then I realize, oh, because I've taken this person's arbitrary action and I've given it all this meaning that may or may not be what the person intended. And then I realize that I've gotten myself all bunched up and over nothing.
Yeah. Well, and as far as like to take that concept to writing, building a writing career is a very intense, slow process. And I find myself, I'm in a much better place with it now. But this time last year, I was frustrated with where I was in my career rather than enjoying the stage of it, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it does. I was looking at your Facebook, and I was back in the archives kind of, and I noticed that you posted something, and I think it was, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was this time last year that you had finished your manuscript for your novel. Is that right?
So this time last year I was just getting ready to release The Highly Capable through Book Trope. So yeah, I think I think I had just gotten into my editor around this time last year.
So what was frustrating at that time?
I guess that,
I mean, if that's what you meant, I didn't mean to lead you there, but I was trying to think in my mind, what was the frustrating, you said you were at a frustrating point in your career, and I was trying to think of what guess that was about.
The building of it rather than, sometimes I get just very focused on this being successful with it or reaching these certain goals and rather than just enjoying the phase that I'm at. So instead of enjoying that I got it off to my editor, I was probably, more concerned with the release of it or something like that. I was kind of worrying about the next step or frustrated that I wasn't at a certain level rather than just enjoying the process.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I posted on Twitter recently, and a lot of times I'll post inspiring sounding things on Twitter, but it's usually something that I'm reminding myself. And one thing that I tweet, I've done it more than once, but it's like I say, don't get down on yourself because you are not someplace other than where you are.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like it's coming. It's definitely coming. You're, as Tim Ferriss would say, you're trending in the right direction. And that's what really matters. If you lose 3 pounds or 30 pounds, the most important thing is if you're trying to lose weight, that you're trending in the right direction.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so do you still feel, so how are you feeling now about it? You said you were in a frustrated place. How are you feeling now?
Much, you know what? I'm enjoying all the projects that I'm really enjoying my spot. I mean, I'm still keeping my goals in mind, of course. That's just kind of, but I'm doing it in a way that, I'm, just, soaking myself into the projects. I'm having fun with where I am. I'm having a lot of fun right now. And, so I'm in a much better spot with it.
I'm so glad to hear that. I know what you mean. I think about building a career. One thing that is an upside to me, although it may not. 5 years from now, we'll see if I still feel this way. But one thing that I appreciate about this is that it is a long game and that things are slow. I come from acting background. I'm an actress. I've done movies and television and commercials, and
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, but it's very fast paced. A lot of people have to say yes to you in a very short time. It's just very different. It's a very different, yeah, like people don't, and I don't mean to generalize and sound negative. I'm just being like, the way that I've experienced it is that people don't give a long look. It's like someone takes a cursory glance and make a really big decision based on, I don't know, mojo? Who knows? Maybe they know. But the literary game is like totally different. People do give you a real look.
It's true.
And that, oh my God, it's like, I bet that Hollywood would be filled with completely different people today if Hollywood took a page from the literary culture and took a long look at motherfuckers before they start investing all those dollars.
Yeah. Wow. No, and I never I didn't know that, but that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, the length of time it takes, and it's a slow game, but I'm appreciating it. It makes me feel like like I'm not failing.
Yeah,
because it hasn't happened yet.
Totally. Well, and I think that's part of me being in a better place with it, as I am starting to enjoy the long game of it, and it feels like we have time.
Yeah, it does feel like we have time. And it's like there's a certain there's like a certain staying power. It's like you write a story. That story is going to be just as viable today as it will be, 5 months from now or 2 years from now. It'll still be new material that's exciting and fresh to someone who hasn't seen it. It's not the same, like, in like acting, and also with music a little bit too. It feels like there's more of a time constraint. You can listen to a song and be like, oh, this song must be from the 90s. You can tell because of the way that the sounds that they use, or the style of production or whatever. And with acting, it's like, you look at somebody's headshot, you're like, well, this is old as fuck. This is black and white. Where'd you get this? Who's got the time machine? Like, it's like everything is like, hurry up, and you're not current in like 5 minutes. And it always made me feel like, I was always feeling like on the edge of like, everything was so important. Like I always felt like I was always right on the edge of stardom. Like every second, oh, this could be it. This could be it. This could be it. This could be it. In the literary game, even J.K. Rowling is getting rejection letters. And so it's like, I have a shot just like anybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I do.
It's comforting to me.
Yeah. Well, so I'm about halfway through Mollyville.
Oh.
And I am loving the world you built.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
No, it's a great combination of like, it comes across as very unique, but there's a lot of, things that you can pull as far as like, that's reminiscent of modern day society and issues that everyone deals with day to day. And I like how you're combining those two.
Thank you. What, do you have any like questions or thoughts around it? Is there anything that you were like, what? Or I don't know. I'm always very curious about, your impressions having read it, because everyone picks up on different things.
Yeah, it is always interesting. And it's one of the things that rocked my mind too when I first started putting content out there, is how people can read it and just pick up something that you didn't even, intend or see yourself as the writer. It's crazy. Well, so I gotta say, the initial question that has popped out in my mind is, what led you to Mollyville?
What brought me to creating Mollyville was actually like a somewhat childish but totally understandable emotional tantrum that I had alone in my mind. I don't like people telling me what to do.
Okay.
And I especially don't like people telling me not to curse. And I remember very clearly that day, and it's happened to me more than once, I remember that day I must have said, oh, fuck, or shit, or what, I don't know, something like that. And some person had the audacity to try to censor me and tell me basically not to use that kind of language or some bullshit, And I felt so angry and hurt by it, just like, again, like at the grocery store. Remember when the lady pushed me and I was like, oh, and when people try to censor my speech, I get the same kind of like hurty feelings. I feel like I'm a kid on the playground again. And I just thought, you know what, fuck this. And I started like, what if there was a place for people who just decided, they were sick and tired of the societal norms, and they wanted to be a place where they could fully be themselves, even if it wasn't what everyone's doing or what's, acceptable. And so that's how I came up with the idea of Mollyville. Like, it's basically a bunch of expats that have moved into a place where they can do their own thing, create their own community, etc. Because Mollyville is dystopian, but it's actually right now, right here with all of us. And I know that there are places like, when you look at a map and it looks like there's like big, or when you're in an airplane and you look down and there's like all these giant parcels of land with like nothing on it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. And then, or when you look at a map and you see like, everything's not mapped out. There are huge places. And I heard that in Brazil, there's some places like this too that are not on the map. You look at the map and it's like this city, this city, this city, and they just leave it off and it looks like there's nothing there. But there's a whole community of people there. They're just not on the map. So
I love
had
that concept.
Yes, thank you. So like that's how I came up with it. And so Mollyville they have all the same, they've got the best technology. The idea of Mollyville is basically this. I mean, the place itself, not the stories, but just the location. So you've got all the people that are there are the wealthy elite. Has to be, because it's just to get there. Mollyville is located in a mountain range that juts out of the sea. So if you can imagine a mountain jutting out of the sea, and in the top of this mountain, there's like a valley, like in the top of the mountain, that's where Mollyville is. So it's really not accessible unless most people get there by accident. And they have all the best technology. They have beautiful homes because like you've got architects in Mollyville and surgeons and doctors and all these really highly intelligent and most importantly, emotionally intelligent people that for whatever reason, they all have different reasons, wanted or needed to get away from our modern society. And Mollyville is disconnected. There's no money in Mollyville. There's other things. There's like service contracts. So let's say we lived in Mollyville, it would be like, I make this amazing like peach salsa, right?
Yum.
And you write these amazing stories. So you and I would come up with a contract. Like, I'm going to give you as much peach salsa as you want, and you're going to provide me with whatever stories I ask you for, kind of thing.
Totally, like a bartering economy.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that. So that's how I came up with the idea. Basically, is just it was my desire to escape from a culture / society that I felt was not tolerant, and
Totally.
I had an experience recently like that where somebody had something negative to say and I was like, if I'm really mad, I'm not going to curse at you. If I'm really mad, I'm not going to say fuck you or anything like that, So I was cursing and it was in jest, like, oh shit, or,
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck we want, and this person had the audacity to tell me she didn't like my language or whatever.
Oh.
Now, I wasn't one of her childhood friends come to her house to play after school. I am an adult and we were taking a walk outside. And to be honest with you, I wasn't even talking to her.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody else, and I felt so offended and so angered by the whole exchange. And the woman who had the issue, she was the mother of one of my friends or whatever. Now, me and all of my friends, we stopped pretending not to use curse words when we moved out of the house.
Yeah.
I don't have any friends who patronize their parents by pretending not to know what sex is or not to, we just don't do that.
Yeah.
But this guy, he still plays those childhood games. I guess, I don't know, what's it, Arrested Development, with his mom. And, to me, that's not respect. That's the opposite of respect.
Yes.
Not being yourself around your parents. So when I said, and I cursed in front of her twice, first I said, shit, and then another time I said, fuck. And she goes, oh, I don't like that word. And I knew what she meant, but I was mad already. So I said, what word? And then she was like, the F word. And I said, oh,
the F word.
The F word, And it's like, I don't share her beliefs. Now, I happen to know that this lady, she's Catholic, and I realize that there are all kinds of different things, different religions and different factions, and there's different kinds of Catholics or whatever like that. But her dislike of the F word, fuck, as I like to call it, I'm sure that it has to do with her religious, with her religious beliefs. If I was to ask her, why don't you like the word, she probably could only tell me that it's a bad word. There's no, you know what I mean? So I felt so hurt and offended that she felt so entitled to try and tell me like how I could and couldn't express myself. And I was like, well, I'm never going to put myself in this position again, because it felt so horrible. Now, I don't know. It's like, it just felt really bad. And so I would love to be in a place where like that never happens. And that's why I created Mollyville. It's a place where there are no rules. There's no cops in Mollyville. There's no attorneys. Everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no cops. There's no attorneys. It's a self-policing society. And that means like everyone gives each other a really wide berth. because all of them understand that they're there because everyone wanted to live free.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hurt anybody or impinge upon another person. But if someone or a group of people are doing something that, as a whole, and there's no democracy or whatever like that, but if someone's doing something or hurting someone or, affecting someone in a negative way in Mollyville and they want to do something about it, they do something about it. And it's a serious enough offense, then a group of them who are all offended by the same thing get together and do something about it. They put their masks on and they go and handle business. I'm punching my fist in my hand. They go and handle business, and so that's how it is in Mollyville. So it's kind of dystopian. Like some people are like, oh, that's great, and then some people are like, well, I don't know about that. I don't want someone busting in my house in the middle of the night, shaking me out of my bed because I did something wrong or whatever.
Well, I mean, dystopian in general, I love it, and then part of it is, I think that it goes into why it's so popular. Because as much as it is that, it's attractive, a different society. It's attractive to a lot of people. And what I find really interesting is that, I like that you brought a recovering psychopath into Mollyville.
Oh, yes.
That it rocks.
Well, he's in self-recovery, mind you. He's like, yeah, okay. Tell me what you like about that, because
Well, so the fact that Mollyville is a place where people don't want to be constrained, and there's this interesting society that you put there, and then you have that's just a really interesting character to bring into a place with no traditional law. I really like that.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's a perfect place for him. I'm right now, I'm developing the second book in the series. So the first one is Mollyville Humble Beginnings, and the recovering psychopath, you're talking about Bjorn Olsen.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a murderer. He's a serial murderer, but he's like thoughtful about it. He's not modeled after this character, but Hannibal Lecter comes to mind.
You know what? He crossed my mind as I was reading him, and I love Bjorn. I am such a fan of complex characters, and he is definitely a complex character.
He is. Have you gotten to the bit yet about his relationship with the prostitute named Simone?
No, I have not yet.
Oh. Yeah. So, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, he's a psychopath.
And I apologize. I typically do. I attempt to read the whole book before I bring a guest on, but it has just been, I've been like Bugs Bunny playing baseball. It's been crazy.
Oh my God, I've never heard that before. What does that mean?
Oh, there's the Looney Tunes. There was this one episode of Bugs Bunny was playing baseball, and he was the whole team. So he was going to first and then to second and to third, and then he hit the bat and he pitched the ball. And it was just, it's like a totally wacky 5-minute cartoon, but like I watched so much Looney Tunes as a kid. So I occasionally, depending on what kind of day I'm having, I'll just kind of picture that, like, running from one place, taking care of something else. And
I know what you're talking about. Yes. When you explain to me the cartoon, I've seen that cartoon, and he like tags himself out the whole nine. Uh-huh. He's catching the ball. Yeah, I understand. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, but I'm not. I'm not quite halfway, but I am really, really enjoying it.
Well, I'm glad. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so no spoilers. But I will say, for people who are listening who have not gotten into the story yet, I really want to encourage everyone and to read it. Not just because I wrote it, but because any story that I write, I always want to give the reader tools to use. And I try to do it on every page, give you something. So like, for example, so Bjorn's got some problems. He's married to his wife, who's the love of his life. But Bjorn also has a massive ego, and he doesn't make any apologies. That's one thing I love about Bjorn. He's absolutely unapologetic. He knows that he does things that are not appreciated by most, but he has his reasons for doing them, and he's not ashamed or afraid. He's very smart and he's rich. And now he's moved himself into the society where basically anything goes. He has stopped killing people generally, because because he didn't need to. It was like something that he did, kind of like when you spill water on the floor, how you wipe it up. That's how he was looking at what he was doing, But
Totally.
yeah, so he's a psychopath, but he's more like a Dexter kind of psychopath, but
Totally. Yeah.
in a personal way. Like if you do something bad or wrong to him, and he will try to deal with it in a normal way, a non-violent way. But once you get to a certain place with Bjorn, it's just over and you're gonna die. But that's just the way he is. And I don't focus so much on the killing in this particular first book. It's more about his relationship with his wife and his family and his relationship in the town, and kind of introducing people to Mollyville, the whole concept of it. There's the second storyline too, which maybe you haven't gotten to yet. So there's Bjorn and Eva Olsen, and they're married with children, and their children are all adults, young adults, but they're grown all the same. There's another storyline with these two grifters, male prostitutes, that come into town and decide that they're going to try to stay. But they're not very good at what they do. So, like, how do you not be good as a prostitute? Well,
I like that I like that you explored that.
Yeah, totally. So like you have there's this larger, like sometimes in Mollyville I go in really close and deal with like an individual's emotions and stuff. Like there's a part where Bjorn is reminiscing about Simone, who's the prostitute. It was his girl. Like he had this prostitute that he used to patronize regularly, and all the things he did for her and how much he loved her and cared about her. And in the end, the relationship didn't last, and it's because he changed. His perspective changed. She did something where basically she held out on him. And when he discovered that she was holding out on him, like strategically, he felt really hurt. And because he had been giving all of himself to her. And then he realized, oh, she's just doling me out little bits of herself. And he got hurt and offended. And so the relationship went like south very quickly for him. But I always try to leave the reader with tools. And so like when he was reminiscing about Simone, there are so many messages I tried to like layer in, but like, how when you think about something that happened to you, how you manufacture the same emotions in the present time, remembering something from before.
Mm-hmm.
So that starts to happen to Bjorn as he's thinking about the incident that caused him so much grief, and he starts to get really upset. And so in the story, I illustrate his mental process, how he gets himself from rage to calm and peace, and then what happens as a result of his change in perspective. This book, Mollyville, is all about perspective, really. The grifters have a perspective. They go from being trying to be prostitutes, and then their perspective starts to change. They came in there like trying to run game on people, and they were like scammers and prostitutes. They do whatever. They were con men. They did whatever they needed to do to get on. But as they started to realize their environment wasn't what they'd come from before, their perspective started to change from what can I get out of this to how can I be a part of this.
It's so cool. It strikes me as a lot of fun to create. You have fun?
Oh my gosh, I had a great time.
And you're working on the second one, you said, right?
I am, and I'm working on the second one, but to say that is almost a little bit wrong, because the one that I released as the first actually hadn't been the way I intended it to go. The first Mollyville story that I had the way I intended it before was it begins with the murder of Bjorn and Eva Olsen.
Oh man,
I know, and the whole story focused on this woman named Grace, who runs the Mollyville Post Annex, which is like the only communication from Mollyville out to the rest of the world is through the Mollyville Post Annex. So as I was writing that story, I became so enamored of Bjorn and Eva that I just couldn't kill them. And so I said, well, let me go back. Let me go back and get into this loving relationship. And I had a really wonderful time because it was like I wrote about all the things that like I want. Like Bjorn Olsen is like the man. If I could snap my fingers and be a man, I'd want to be Bjorn Olsen. Like he always knows the right thing to do and the right thing to say because of his experience,
Yeah. Isn't that crazy how like when you're writing something and something else comes out, or like other characters take a bigger role than you anticipated? I mean, I love that part of the process. It fascinates me.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then also as we're writing, like the characters come alive. I know everyone's probably heard this a million times, but like for me, when I was podcasting Mollyville, it took me until like episode 16 before I finally understood who Yannick is, one of the grifters, one of the male prostitutes, before his real voice came out. And something I'm going to do is I'm going to rebroadcast Mollyville. I'm going to do the podcast all over again. I've rewritten a lot of the story, and now I feel more confident with all of my voices. Mollyville was the first time I tried to podcast anything, and I didn't have the balls. I didn't have the guts to like pull out all my like weird voices, and now I totally do. So I'm going to revisit that, and it's going to be
excited.
Even more fun. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love it. I have like ideas for characters, but I'll tell you the truth. I was afraid that I would piss somebody off. And that's totally against my character. Because usually I'm like, well, if you don't like it, fuck you. No,
I get that though. I mean, especially the medium of podcasting, it's different, at least for me, than writing, because the audience, it's hard not to consider offending people. I mean, that's crossed my mind too, as far as certain notes that I make. I'm like, it's a different part of it, I feel like.
I feel like it's not a very helpful part.
No, because certainly not.
It's like not very helpful because, and I tell my friends all the time, and this is the thing that I've started doing. I've started keeping a log of all the advice that I give so that I can take it myself.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah, right? Because, and I realized, and I stopped keeping the log recently because I realized that I'm aware of it now, so I don't have to. And this is what I've come to understand. Any person, whether it's a stranger or a good friend or just any person that comes to me and offers a conversation in which we end up discussing how to solve something, that's something for me.
Okay. No, totally.
Even though they say it's their problem, the reason why that person has approached me with this conversation is that there's something for me in it.
I like that.
Thank you. And I'm always telling people the same thing. Like, if you love it, someone else will too. And I'm always saying, you can't be accountable for other people's feelings because number one, you'll never know because they'll never tell you. But also, number three, a lot of times we don't know, or some people, we don't know like how we feel about something, or, we want to feel a certain way, but how we actually feel is not quite in alignment with the best version of ourselves, how we think we'd like to feel about a situation.
No,
I don't mean
totally.
to be so.
I was soaking it in.
Okay. I was like, that sounds a little bit vague. I guess it's easier if I just do like a, for instance, like, like some people, they might say, well, in their best version of themselves, they're not judgmental, but in their real life, when they see a person that's dressed like real frumpy, for example, they do take a dim view of that person. It's not in alignment with their best version of themselves, but it's how they actually are thinking.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that happens for everyone. So I say to my friends and I say to myself, it is not any of our business what other people think of us, and it's none of our business how anybody feels about us because we'll never know, and they might not even know, and it doesn't matter. The stuff I was worried about as far as like offending people, it's going to sound very silly, but I'll tell you. Actually, better than this. It's the story. I have the story about this.
Awesome.
I I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. I have been for a long time. And I went to this, at the Screen Actors Guild, like when you're a member of the SAG Foundation, which is a foundation within the Screen Actors Guild, you're not automatically a member of the foundation. You have to apply to be a member.
Okay.
And they have so many great workshops and just wonderful. It's just a great experience. And they had this workshop with this man who is a really talented voice actor. And he was giving this workshop. And he was doing an experiment where he called like 5 people from the audience to read a piece of like some audition material. And it was just like an audition, it's like, this is your paragraph, you say this line, right? And so there was 3 men and 2 girls. One of the guys was Asian. There was an older, you'll see why the race is important in a little bit. There was an older man with silver hair. He looked like he was European. He had that sophisticated kind of, you would have expected him to speak with some type of sexy accent, There was I think a white female, a black female, and I don't remember the other person. But the line was for I think it was a Disney movie or it was a Pixar film, and the role was the role of a magic genie / servant character. Okay?
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, right. So the teacher, the man who was running the workshop, was wanting to show us like how important it is to be an individual. Because literally, like talking about Hollywood, there are not only hundreds, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people competing for the same job. Now, they don't all have the same chances, but all of their names are in the hat, basically, Anyone who's got an audition is technically in the hat. Even if casting has ideas or whatever, they're still in the hat. They've got a shot.
Right.
And so the guy who was running the workshop was trying to show us like how important it is to be an individual. And this is about, instead of trying to guess what that casting director or what that director wants, you have got to just come with something that is completely unique. You've got to come with something.
Right.
And so he lined up these people to prove a point, like, okay, you read the line. I think his point was like to try to show each of those individuals, even though they were very different from each other, how each of them could do the same line and bring something totally different to it. And they all had their own way. Of course, the older European man was a very sophisticated servant. Yes, princess, immediately. It was very like, you could almost see,
Right.
him. The female, the young female was like a very perky assistant. Yes, princess, immediately. Like they all had their different take. When it came to the young Asian guy, he did like, yes, princess, immediately. But there was nothing special about it. It didn't really stand out. It was a great reading, but it wasn't like, you wouldn't be like, he's got the job, right?
Yeah.
And so each of these other people, because of just who they were, they added something. Because the one guy was older, his character was kind of already created for him. He's older European man, sophistication, and the young perky. Everyone had their thing except for the young Asian guy. And he was Korean, by the way. And the man running the workshop turned, because he was dialoguing with the actor and dialoguing with the audience, saying, how can we help him fine-tune or retune his reading so that he stands out? And, he was calling on people from the audience. I was in the audience, what do you think? And people gave him like different ideas or whatever. And he tried different things, but it was all still, even though there was nothing wrong with his reading, he was great, but it just he wasn't booking that job, period. He just didn't, it wasn't right on. It wasn't spot on. So finally I stood up and I said, I've got an idea. And I said, do it with a Korean accent. Oh my God. I swear, people tried to throw things at me. People were so offended, of course, no minorities, were offended, but like, oh, that's racist. And how dare you suggest, people were just giving me like all kinds of flack or whatever. But the guy who was running the workshop said, all right, she's heard you all, everyone sit down. And he turns to the actor. He goes, this is up to you if you'd like to try it that way. He read those lines in that Korean accent and the whole room fell apart laughing. He would have booked the job.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And he speaks, of course, he doesn't really even speak Korean that well. He's American, that's just his background, but he knows what it sounds like. And speaking in that, he's did it in like a broken Korean accent kind of thing. It just worked, and it was fantastic and amazing. But you got to really have balls to do something like that.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of balls that I didn't have when I was doing Mollyville. I was afraid to speak in my broken Chinese or my,
Yeah.
all of the weird characters I've created, because I didn't want anyone to feel like I was making fun of them.
Yeah. No, I
But
get that though.
I've totally gotten over that now.
Well, I definitely will be paying attention if you do rebroadcast that. Excuse me, rebroadcast that. I'm definitely interested in tuning in.
Thank you. Well, I definitely will, for sure. I'm doing that. I just had to grow some balls. I had to grow some balls, and I did it by listening to this guy, John Rubinstein. He's my favorite voice narrator. He narrates a lot of the. Have you ever heard this author, Jonathan Kellerman?
It is ringing a bell.
He's a mystery. He writes a lot of different kinds. He has like 3 different series, but they're like detective mystery series. He writes the Alex Delaware series. And this guy, John Rubinstein, does all the voices, and he's amazing. He does women, men, kids, and it sounds totally real. And I'm like, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to do it.
That's awesome. Oh, I love when you're, that's one really cool thing about the creative community is that, you can, you get inspired by others. And I know that that's happened to me countless times. I'll read something or I'll see something, and the ability to see someone execute something a certain way, it can open the doors for, to figure out things that you didn't know that you were capable of or even wanted to try beforehand. It's cool stuff.
Hell yeah. What was one of the things that you saw that made you feel that way?
Well, to bring it all the way back, when I was all the way back, when I was like in second or third grade, I had read Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson for the first time. And that I can point to that. And that is when my relationship to the literary world started, because I felt so much emotion from reading that story that I knew then that I wanted to create stuff that could make other people feel even close to what that book made me feel.
How did it make you feel?
Oh, well, I mean, it's very inspiring, but it's also a very sad story. But at the same time, it's an interesting mix of real hopeful and growing up, but then it's the harshness of the unexpected happening. And it just, I remember rocking it rocked my world at the time.
What was the feeling like relating to you? Like, were you like, I also want to make people feel this experience? Like, I want to contribute to this. I want to make some more of this. Or was it like, yeah?
Yeah. Like not that specifically, but like, yeah, I want to contribute to the world of stories. I want to make people, be able to learn something about themselves or feel a certain way with the written word.
Yeah. See, that's how I feel too. And I want to give people something more than just a pretty story. I want people to put down my book and feel stronger. I'll tell you someone who did this for me, Anne Rice.
Okay.
So when I read, I'm sure the first of her books I read, I think was The Vampire Lestat, I think. And when I put down her book, I felt empowered. I felt like I had gotten smarter somehow, I felt like I had learned something about the world. Of course, it's fiction, but I still had that feeling. And a lot of fiction books don't affect me that way. And I realized it was the characters in her novels, the way that they think, the way that it's kind of like having a friend that always knows just the right thing to say to bolster you for any situation, is kind of like how I felt reading her novels. Once I put the novel down, I felt like the characters in her book were with me all the time, coaching me, helping me. Don't listen to him. he's nothing, you know, or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, but yeah, totally that. I mean, stories are so important that way, and contributing to that community and is always been really attractive to me.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. I have a lot of like dark humor in my stories, and some things are funny to people and sometimes some things are funny to people that are not meant to be jokes, and sometimes the jokes are not funny. I mean, you know, it's all so subjective, but somebody always gets something. Someone said something really interesting to me one time that I loved. So there was this friend of mine, and he and I wrote this short that we did, and he directed it, and I wrote the scripts, and we were screening it. It was me, him, the editor, and the editor's friend, who's this very like seasoned showrunner slash DP guy, very opinionated, very intelligent man. And so we were watching it together. And when it ended, I know this is going to sound funny, but I call him, and there's people like him. If I say this, probably people will know, the uppity black guy. He's like very like intense about everything, you know. He's got a very intense opinion about everything, you know, and he's like got lots of energy, and like you can't not listen to him and look at him. He's very engaging, but he's uppity. And he was like he didn't like the story. Like he said, oh, because at the end of the story, to some people, it was kind of a sad ending or whatever. You know, some people deal with sadness by rejecting it, you know.
Yeah.
So he was like very uppity, and he was like, oh, I didn't like this and that, you know, and he was like very like animated about it, and he was really intense about it. And then he spoke his piece, and he was pissed off, and he left. And so then my friend who directed the piece, he turned to me and he goes, oh, he's like, we definitely won. And I was like, how do you mean? And he said to me, well, it doesn't really matter how somebody feels about what you did. It's the intensity of their feeling that's important.
Oh, wow. I like that.
So he said, yeah. So he said, if somebody really loves what you did, it's just as great as if somebody really hated your thing. It's the same. The intensity of emotion, that's what's important. And I never forgot
t-shirt.
That. Oh my God. I know, right? Shit. I know. I could just sit in a room and just come up with t-shirt ideas, you know, merch ideas for you. When you're ready to do that, I hope that you will invite me to join the circle. I will bring wine.
Oh, well then it's a done deal. No, definitely. Well, and that's fun. A merch party. Can you tell everybody where they can find out about you and your work and all that good stuff?
Yes, my website is, I'm going to spell this. It's super long. It's TarynMaxximillianDafoe. TarynMaxximillianDafoe.com. And that's my website. I have another website too. It's called Writer and Angelino. And TarynMaxximillianDafoe.com is my website as an author and as a person. It's my personal / work website. And that's where you can find out about all of my books, and the podcasts are there. I don't do a lot of updating about what I've got going on because I'm too busy doing it. But I do keep it current, and all the podcasts and stuff are there. The other website, writerandangelino.com, that is I have a new podcast that I'm going to be doing as well. It's a nonfiction podcast, long form interviews, and I hope to be as engaging as Too Many Words podcast. And it's a long form, and so that's where you'll find like recipes, the interviews, and it's an uplifting, inspiring blog and
Very
podcast.
cool.
So so there won't be anything that's gonna like make you feel bad. There's no politics or news, nothing like that sad. It's all, someone compared it. They said, "Oh, it reminds me of a combination of like Snap Judgment and This American Life." I was like, "Okay, I'll take that."
That's
So that's where you
awesome.
can find me. And my books are on Amazon as well. Thank you. And podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And I have a content provider page on iTunes. So if you just put in Maxximillian, 2 X's, 2 L's, Maxximillian Dafoe, you'll see my podcasts come up. And as I add new podcasts, you'll see them there too.
That's
And
awesome.
thank you. And so, yeah, so please subscribe to the podcast. And I know if you look at Mollyville, you see that it's been a while since I added an episode. That's because, as we talked about earlier, I'm developing season 2. So please subscribe. And even though it doesn't look like there's anything going on, that's where the new episodes will appear. And Afterlife, which is my other podcast, the Afterlife podcast. And now I realize that there are like 25 other podcasts with the same name, but
It's still a cool name.
Yeah, it's still a cool name. And so right now the Afterlife podcast is there, but the Afterlife, the book, it's based on a book that I wrote that's on Amazon. That is actually a part of a series as well. I have a series called Bedtime Stories for the Intellectually Adventurous.
Yes, I saw that. And I gotta.
Well, they're essentially bedtime stories for grown-ups.
I love that concept. No, it's awesome. I've had such a blast talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. And I wish you so much success. And I realize that you're going to break all of your exciting news on your podcast. So I'll save my questions, but I do want to let you know that I am a fan. I really appreciate the way that you share your inner life. You share your inner life like nothing I've ever seen before.
Thank you.
Know, you're welcome. It's so refreshing. You know, a lot of us deal with the same with the same things. You know, like I've heard you and your guests talk about like dealing with depression and anxiety, and I think that more of us have those instances than people really admit. And I love the way that you are open about what you're experiencing and how you're dealing with it. And I just really appreciate you. You're a breath of fresh air, and I wish you just nothing but success. And I'm really excited for your books to come out. I know I was listening to your podcast, and I know that you said that you're taking a hiatus from one of the storylines because you're developing it into something larger.
Yes. Elliot Granger and the Clueless Brigade.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for that. And I just want to tell you that I think what you're doing is great. And you were apologizing for the people that were angry and upset and stuff like that. But I know you're doing the right thing. And I just want to encourage you.
Well, thank you so much. And right back at you. You're awesome. And it's been beyond a pleasure.
Thank you.
Wasn't that awesome? So fun. And thanks for tuning in, guys. That wraps it up. What can I say? Tune in next week for me and Chris Balluz, formerly a member of Presidents of the United States and the man behind Casper Baby Pants. And so, yes, we are doing this. We are wrapping it up. Visit iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Let me know what you think of the show. And yes, follow me on Twitter at @meBettingfield. Go to Facebook or Twitter, talk to the show, which is me at Too Many Words Pod. My website, JaymeBettingfield.com. And go to Inkshares. Look up the Shadow Bearers. The Shadow Bearers. And help Rebecca and I achieve our goal. Please. Thank you. All right. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll talk to you next time.